Chapter 16. Eiji was awakened by a deep, throbbing pain in his shoulder. It took him a moment to realize that he was also sitting up, which sent his mind into a very slow sort of panic. He blinked around the sitting room in shock for what felt like quite a long stretch of time as he tried to collect himself and remembered where he was and what had happened. He was just beginning to get his bearings when there was a flurry of motion, and Lord Felix appeared in front of him, his huge body blocking out the rest of the room. Eiji stared up at his face stupidly, his master registering just a little surprise at Eiji's bleary eye contact. "Hello," the god said, staring down intently at him. "How are you feeling? That drug seems to have hit you hard." "I'm all right," Eiji croaked. His tongue felt heavy and huge in his mouth, crowding his teeth and making it difficult to speak. And his mouth was so dry. "What can I get you?" Lord Felix asked. Then, perhaps noticing the rasp in Eiji's voice, "Could you drink some water?" Eiji nodded eagerly, and the god was gone before he'd even finished the first head bob. The sight of that supernatural speed was dizzying, so Eiji closed his eyes and tried to order his thoughts. However, it was difficult to do much ordering in the scant seconds before Lord Felix was standing next to his chair and offering him a cup. Eiji's hands were numb and clumsy, but he managed the cup all right. The water felt wonderful in his mouth and even better in his parched throat, and he guzzled it all eagerly. "I'll get you more," Lord Felix said, grabbing the cup back and disappearing once more. It wasn't until Eiji had finished his third cupful that he remembered that he was supposed to have manners. "Thank you, my lord," he said. "You are kinder than your servant deserves." The words sounded rote and dead. Fuzzily, Eiji sensed that he ought to have more feelings about the situation, but he couldn't quite muster them. He just felt tired and happy to have the water. "Do you think you could eat anything?" the god asked. Eiji was a little dizzy, but his stomach felt fine. He wasn't exactly hungry, but maybe food would help him feel a little more normal. "All right," he agreed. Eiji stood across to the table and wavered a little on his feet, which had Lord Felix flickering over to his side and putting steadying hands on his waist. Eiji's head spun. He leaned into that firm, reassuring grip, and before he even had time to register that he felt nauseated, he threw up all over Lord Felix's broad chest. It was mostly water and bile. He kept retching once his stomach was empty, and the crushing pain of those dry heaves was worse than the acid burn when he actually had something to disgorge. Still, his stomach wrung itself over and over as it tried to reject something that wasn't even there. The convulsions sent white-hot agony needling through his shoulder, and all the different sources of pain overwhelmed him until he couldn't even form thoughts. Lord Felix's voice was soft and calm and right in his ear. "Easy, sweetheart. Let's get you sitting down again. Can you sit for me? Good work." A breeze pushed gently against Eiji's face, and then chilly fingers were pressing a cup into his hands. "If you don't think you can keep the water down yet, just swish it around and spit it back into the cup," Lord Felix said. "It'll help with the taste." Eiji realized that for the first time the god didn't sound uncomfortable as he gave him his orders. He obeyed easily and raised the cup to his lips. Once he had his mouth full, he decided that he could swallow the water without too much danger now that he was sitting. It stung a little as it slid down his raw throat, but it cleared the acrid flavor from his mouth. His master soothed him as he drank. "Good, sweetheart. Wonderful. I'll be right back." Despite those words, Eiji barely had time to open his eyes before the god was crouching in front of him again with a cloth in his hand. "I'm going to clean your face now, all right?" Lord Felix leaned forward, then hesitated. Sorry. Let me get this off." He stripped off his shirt, the shirt that was splattered with Eiji's sick, and set it aside before leaning in again to wipe Eiji's face. Eiji submitted to his gentle ministrations. His mind was still clouded, but he could register clearly enough that he had thrown up on a god, and he didn't even have it in him to apologize right. Was there an appropriate apology for such a situation? They'd certainly never mentioned in his lessons that this was a possibility for how his life might turn out. He didn't realize he was crying until Lord Felix folded the cloth in his hand, turned it to a clean side, and started wiping his cheeks instead of his chin. "I'm sorry," Eiji managed at last. Please punish me, my lord. This was inexcusable." Lord Felix gestured to his crumpled shirt. "What, that? You know what I do all day, dear. You'll have to work much harder than that if you want to disgust me. Remember the bedpan? And have you ever cleaned someone up after a bowel movement so explosive that you have to wash their hair? Because I did that last week. This isn't even worth mentioning." "My lord." How would he even finish that appeal? If his master were to punish him right now, the movement would probably just result in Eiji throwing up on him again. "It's fine, Eiji," the god soothed. "I promise. I would never be angry with anyone for something like this, least of all you." Eiji didn't feel any better, but it was clearly no use to argue. He just sat there and loathed himself as his master dabbed away his endless supply of tears. "Well, I'd say we can safely add nausea and depression to drowsiness," the god said finally, calm and pleasant as if they were just chatting about Eiji's day. "Do you want to keep using this painkiller, or do you want to try another? Julia has a few. Maybe another would cause you fewer side effects." "I don't want to be any trouble," Eiji whispered. The words caused a fresh flow of miserable tears, because how did he think he could be more trouble than he already was? He'd allowed his carelessness to damage the body that didn't even belong to him, ruined Lord Felix's rest day, splattered vomit all over the god. At this point, what was left? "It's no trouble, sweetheart," his master said, predictably. "If you're all right with this medicine, so am I. It would be a privilege to take care of you for a few days. But if you want to try something else, it will be no trouble for me to go find Julia and swap bottles. It's up to you." How Eiji was coming to hate those words! "I beg you, my lord, let your servant know how to please you in this." "Eiji?" Lord Felix said his name with unusual firmness, and Eiji let his gaze flick up to see the god's serious expression. "I am willing to command you in most things, but this is a line I won't cross. I will not force medication on you. You need to make a decision." Eji's stomach started weaving itself into complicated knots. His skin felt too tight, and his breath came short and sharp. "No, please, just give me a hint, anything." He was pathetic. A good attendant would know what his master desired. Lord Felix's voice turned coaxing. "Just one choice, sweetheart, and then I swear I'll look after you all day." Look after you. Lord Felix had said that taking care of him would be a privilege, while he'd only said that getting a new painkiller would be no trouble. That was a clear preference, wasn't it? Eiji should choose to keep the current medicine and weather the side effects. He opened his mouth to say as much, then closed it. He couldn't bear any more of this. It wasn't just that he didn't want to throw up on his master again, though he very much did not. It was the uncontrollable sleep and the slow, soupy nature of his thoughts. It was the tears he couldn't stop. It was the knowledge that those stupid medicine drops were making him think and feel and do things he wouldn't otherwise do. It was the loss of control. "Please, may I try something else?" he whispered, and knew himself to be a failure. The god, however, betrayed no disappointment. Instead, he beamed at Eiji, dropped the towel, and swiped away the fresh flow of tears with his own broad, cool thumbs. "Thank you, Eiji," Lord Felix said. "Good job. That was perfect." They were kind words, but they felt like lies. At the very least, they were confusing, and Eiji squirmed miserably under them. Then, quickly, as though the words tasted bad and he wanted them out of his mouth, the god said, "You are so obedient. That was exactly what I asked you to do. Thank you." Those were the words that let Eiji relax. He hadn't made the wrong choice after all. It had been a giveaway. He'd been obeying as long as he made any decision. However, relaxing sent another jolt of pain through his shoulder. The whimper escaped his lips before he could even try to suppress it. Lord Felix gave him a sympathetic wince. "Is it bad? I'll go find her right now. Just a moment." He was out the door before Eiji could even call out to remind him that he still wasn't wearing a shirt.